All right, so today you guys are finally getting my review of the Capital One Venture X card. And as you guys might know, if you watch my other videos, I've been a loyal Capital One member since 2018, 2017 timeframe, I believe. So it's been about 5 or 6 years since I first got my Capital One Venture card, which I finally upgraded to the Venture X when I got offered to upgrade the card last year in 2023. So it is now 2024 as of the making of this video, and I wanted to provide you guys with my review of the Venture X in terms of its comparison to the other cards in the space, including the AMEX Platinum, which I have, and the Chase Sapphire Reserve, which I also have. And I'm gonna save you guys a little bit of time, and if you don't wanna watch the rest of the video or don't wanna watch the other videos in this credit card space, and just go out there and say that the Venture X is the best card I have in my, I believe, 12 or 13 card portfolio right now. The Capital One Venture X, of the top 3 that everybody talks about, these travel rewards credit cards, it is the simplest to use, has the benefits that you're actually going to use and are readily available, and have miles that are valuable and can be transferred to partners for good value, but also a platform that allows you to use those miles on their native platform of Capital One, which is super easy, has pretty good customer service in my opinion, in my experience rather. And again, allows you to use those benefits for the best bang for your buck. We're talking about the lowest annual fee, right, of all these major credit cards, and still provides pretty insane value for what you're getting, and a card that simply pays for itself, even after the first few years of, if you count the sign-up bonus of 75,000 miles right now, even not including that, the card pays for itself every single year. So I'm gonna talk about that in more depth in this video, but the way I'm gonna break this down is first talking about the annual fee. I think that's the thing that people focus on the most, especially when they're trying to decide between getting different credit cards in terms of high annual fee credit cards, such as the Capital One Venture X, as it is now, one of those offerings. And so we're gonna talk about a little bit of the comparison there and what you're getting for the annual fee, including a valuation of the sign-up bonus and things like that. The next thing I'm gonna do, of course, is touch on all of the benefits of the card and go through kind of a comprehensive review of each of those benefits, not just like tell you what it is, because you can go on Capital One's website and see that for yourself, but I'm gonna try to explain each of them and how I've been able to use those benefits in the past year, as well as if there's any overlap with the Capital One Venture card and those benefits that I used previously, because there are similarities, but because the Venture X is kind of a step above, it's a little bit better, has some more benefits, and we're gonna talk about those. And then finally, I wanna touch on the miles valuation for Capital One miles in general, and some of the best ways to utilize your Capital One miles, for transfer partners and utilizing them for more than a 1 cent per point value. I think a large majority of the videos that you guys have seemed to enjoy on this channel so far, in this short YouTube journey of, whatever credit card, personal finance kind of videos I make, is the valuation of the sort of transfer partners and ways to utilize miles and points for the most and best value. So this is not a video specifically about that, but I'm gonna touch on it briefly. If you're a beginner and don't know a ton about, Capital One miles or, credit card points miles stuff in general, I'll explain to you, some simple ways that it works and how the whole system works in terms of transferring miles for Capital One, give you guys some examples of that as well. So right off the bat, let's do a quick comparison of the annual fee of the Capital One Venture X versus the AMEX Platinum and the Chase Sapphire Reserve. So the Capital One Venture X currently has an annual fee of $395 a year. This annual fee, like the AMEX Platinum and Chase Sapphire Reserve, is charged after the first month of account opening, so your second statement cycle, they're gonna charge the annual fee, of course, unless you're in the military, on active duty in the military, I should say, in which you get the fee waived. And so there's a strategy to that I've talked about in other videos that, last year I was on active duty. When I was deployed, I applied for a bunch of credit cards because I was on an active duty status. And when you apply for those when you're on active duty, you get those SCRA/MLA benefits. It would be MLA, but nonetheless, $395 a year for most of you folks out there, compared to the AMEX Platinum, which has a whopping $695 annual fee as of the making of this video. If you guys are aware, back in 2021, when I first got the card, actually, they had just raised the fee from, I believe, $550 to $695 a year, which is fairly significant, a significant chunk of change, I should say. And then finally, the Chase Sapphire Reserve, which is, there's other cards in this space that I can compare, but the Chase Sapphire Reserve currently has an annual fee of $550 a year. Now, just at a glance in terms of the comparison between these cards, of course, the Capital One Venture X has the lowest annual fee of all 3. And so what you might be thinking is that if you have a lower annual fee, you're probably getting less benefits or the card is not as worth it. But what we're gonna do is first talk about the sign-up bonus. So in terms of the valuation of the sign-up bonus, You can utilize every single Capital One mile on Capital One's platform to either pay for your own stuff that you've charged to the card, or utilize them for miles in terms of redemptions for flights or hotels, rental cars through Capital One Travel at a 1 cent per point value. That makes the current sign-up bonus of 75,000 miles, $750. For some reason in my brain, I was thinking 7,500. If you had a credit card that pays you out 7,000 for the first year of having the card, that's insane. But that's not the case. It is $750 in terms of the simplest way to value that sign-up bonus. People like to talk about, oh, the sign-up bonus for the AMEX Platinum is like, worth like a couple thousand. Yeah, that's if you really stretch your dollar and are booking, Singapore Airlines, redemptions on first class tickets, across the Pacific Ocean. But the average person is not doing that, okay? So I want to keep it real with you guys and explain that if you're the average person out there, which I would consider myself, I don't like to spend all my days, when I'm not making these videos for you guys, I'm not spending all my days on, Award Hacker or the other websites talking about, how can I use my credit card miles and points for the best, value and all this. I do my research, but on a day-to-day basis, if I'm booking flights for myself, I do value simplicity. And so the 1 cent per point valuation of those miles from Capital One is, I would say, in the simplest form, $750 that you get just for having the card in the first anniversary year. If you consider that for the $395 annual fee, the card pays for itself at least in the first year. So while we're on the topic of the annual fee, I want to touch on two things that make the annual fee a wash, meaning that you are not having to pay for the card any year that you use these benefits, and that they are super simple to use. Two of which are, once again, on the Capital One's website, but I'm going to explain how to use them. So the first one being the annual travel credit that you get with the Capital One Venture X, okay? So this is something you don't get with the Capital One Venture, but that card is only $95 a year, so that makes sense. Now the $300 annual travel credit, if you consider that $395 minus $300 of travel credit that you get to use on Capital One Travel's website, this could be booking anything from hotels to flights to, again, rental cars, anything that's available on Capital One Travel, which is pretty solid, and we're going to talk about that in more depth later. You're taking away more than 75% of the annual fee just from utilizing that annual travel credit. Now, you do want to consider whether or not you're going to be the type of person that actually uses that. So if you don't travel somewhere like maybe once a year, because a round trip ticket, generally speaking, in today's age, trying to fly somewhere is going to cost you about $300. Pretty much, I would say anybody that is in the eligibility kind of criteria and that is looking for a Capital One Venture X or a premium travel rewards credit card, you're going to use it because that's why you have the card in the first place. So now we're talking about a $95 annual fee. Let's say if you've used all that $300 annual travel credit. We also have the 10,000 mile anniversary bonus that you get just for having the card. This means that without spending any money, okay, you just get a 10,000 Capital One miles added to your Capital One account for just keeping the card open. And if you have any idea how to use your Capital One miles, because you've watched any of my videos, you would know how to use those 10,000 miles to book flights at way more than a 1 cent per point valuation, which we're gonna touch on. But that 10,000 miles valued at a baseline 1 cent per point means that it's $100 of value that you're getting at a bare minimum, right? So if you just use those miles to book through Capital One Travel, that's $100, and you get a $300 annual travel credit to use also on Capital One Travel, which means that your annual fee is effectively -$5. Now, thus far, we've only talked about two benefits of this card. There's a long list of benefits to the Capital One Venture X. Unlike what most people think, it's just this $300 annual travel credit and this 10,000 mile anniversary bonus, but not including anything else, you're not having to pay for the card. The card pays for itself. Like, it pays to be a winner. It pays to have the Capital One Venture X. I'm not trying to make this sound like an ad, but there are a few credit card offerings or issuers out there that make it so easy to utilize the benefits of the card that it actually pays for itself, okay? So if you're a beginner and you don't have any knowledge of point mile transfers, all this stuff, or how to use your Saks Fifth Ave credit, set a reminder every 6 months to use the $50, it's too easy to utilize these benefits and get way more value out of the card than what you're paying for with the annual fee. So that's that. With the annual fee, we're going to move on to now the benefits and comprehensive review of each of the benefits of the Capital One Venture X. The first thing we want to touch on is the reward structure for how you earn points, well, in this case, Capital One miles, for utilizing your Capital One Venture X, because if you have a credit card, the point is to use your credit card to get rewards and bonuses and get paid for things that you would otherwise have to pay for with a debit card or in cash, and not get any benefits or rewards out of it. So with the Venture X, you get unlimited 2x miles on all purchases. This is pretty big because there is no other card on the market that I'm aware of right now, at least, that offers 2x points or miles on every single purchase. So this is a great catch-all credit card in terms of if you have a very small portfolio of credit cards, you don't have to call it that. If you only have the Capital One Venture X, this is one of the best standalone cards to have. Of course, if you have the Capital One Saver One or other cards to make like a trifecta or like a duo with the Capital One Venture X, it makes it even better. But 2x points, 2x miles on absolutely any purchase. So there's no spending category tied to that 2x points or miles. Now, because it is a travel rewards credit card, of course, you also get 10x miles for booking anything on Capital One Travel. And this is in cash, of course. So if you're, for some reason, think that you're gonna earn miles for booking stuff on Capital One Travel with miles, that's not how that works. You're not gonna earn any miles for doing that. But if you book something in cash on Capital One Travel, you will get that 10x miles for doing so. I do have to caveat that this does not include flights, okay? It's hotels and rental cars. For flights, you get 5x, which is what you also get with the AMEX Platinum and the Chase Sapphire Reserve. But again, the 10x is for hotels and rental cars. Now that reward structure, I would say, is pretty solid. The 10x on hotels and rental cars, and then the 5x on flights is pretty standard or customary across the travel rewards credit cards. But if you want to just do a quick comparison, right? The Amex Platinum offers 1x on all purchases that are not travel related. So the only time I take my Amex Platinum out of my wallet, I never even carry my Amex Platinum because I will literally only use it for booking flights or booking travel, like hotel type stuff, if I want to use either the credits with the card or just want to get benefits or earn my Amex points for that cycle. But with the Capital One Venture X, I literally carry it in my wallet because, one, it's a Visa card. So if you guys are not aware of already, there's certain merchants that don't take Amex because it costs more for the merchant. Visa is basically accepted anywhere in the world. And so if you're not aware of already, the Capital One Venture X is a Visa card. And so I can use it wherever I want. And in case there's a spending category, let's say I need to fix my car, right? For whatever reason, it happens more often than not, but that's a story for another day. But I get 2x miles on that. If I want to, buy groceries, I would recommend using a different card, but you get 2x on absolutely anything, regardless of the spending category. If you don't want to think about this is the spending category, and then this is the card that I need to use for that spending category, then the Venture X is a great offering for that. So the next benefit I want to touch on is the Capital One lounges right now. I would say that's a fairly new benefit just because the lounges are all pretty new. And that's another video for another day talking about, my review of those lounges. But a quick summary is that I would say the ones that I've been to in Denver and in Dallas, I'm from the DC area, but I've never been to the one in Dallas for whatever reason. And I can imagine it's about the same, but my experience in both Dallas and Denver at those Capital One lounges are absolutely excellent. I would say almost on par with the Amex Centurion Lounge. And if we consider the fact that Amex Centurion lounges, which I've talked about before, but Amex Centurion lounges are very crowded. The Amex Platinum is, I would say, a very popular credit card that I think a lot of folks think is harder to get than it actually is. And so they, flaunt the fact that they have a Amex Plat, but it's just a card. Credit cards are not like an indicator of wealth or anything, okay? Just so you guys out there are aware, don't be getting a credit card and then showing the waiter or waitress, they're not gonna be impressed. Just gonna let you know that. But like I said, the lounge network for Capital One specifically, Capital One lounges, includes right now the portfolio of Dallas, Dulles, which is the DC area in Dulles International Airport, Dallas Fort Worth, and Denver. So those are major airports that I would say more than likely you're gonna have to fly through any of the major carriers, especially Denver and Dallas, because they're common connecting airports or airport hubs. And so that's a great thing because if you're at a major airport like Dallas Fort Worth, if you're connecting from the East Coast to the West Coast, or you're going from Austin to somewhere internationally, you're probably gonna have to stop in Dallas. And there's a great opportunity then for you to go utilize that lounge. And to me, because I'm not wearing the shirt right now, but I have a bulking season shirt, and it's to me always bulking season because it's hard for me to put on weight. But nonetheless, I think it's a great opportunity to also make up for that annual fee by actually utilizing the Capital One lounges. And I think personally, I eat enough to make up for a good chunk of that annual fee in one lounge visit because the food is unlimited. And we're not talking about being a degenerate and taking all the food all at once, okay? But if you're being reasonable about it and you're at the lounge for a couple hours, you get hungry, or if you purposely didn't eat breakfast, then go to the lounge and grab breakfast. Nothing wrong with that. No harm, no foul. And you're getting to use the benefit that you paid for with this card. So I would say it's a great experience to definitely to do that. And to sometimes think about if you have a layover, maybe book a flight that has at least an hour in between. That gives you enough time to get from the gate to the Capital One Lounge, whether it's in Denver or Dulles or Dallas. And I just realized the 3Ds, distance, direction, description. If you guys know what I'm talking about, if you know, kind of thing. Did I just say that? It's kind of corny. Let's stop that. So Capital One Lounges, enough about that. They're pretty great. They're all very new also, which I can definitely appreciate. Unlike some of the other lounges that you might be able to go to with your Capital One card, which we're about to talk about next. The next benefit that you get is the Partner Lounge Network with the Capital One Venture X. Okay, and so this is pretty standard across the major credit cards that are the premium travel rewards kind of level, in that you get the Priority Pass Select level of membership, which means that you can go to any of these network lounges that are offered in multiple airports, right? So even like in San Jose, they have like this thing called the Club. And the Club is like a San Jose Mineta airport kind of lounge, but it's covered by Priority Pass. And so you get, again, free food. May not be as good as, Capital One Lounge, but you do have access to those lounges. So for example, if you're, once again, not flying through a major airport, you're probably going to have access to one of these Priority Pass lounges, which can come in pretty handy. One thing to note is that if you have the Capital One Venture X, you have to actually enroll in Priority Pass for them to then send you a Priority Pass card and then utilize that for access to those lounges. But in addition to the network of lounges you get with Priority Pass, like with other credit cards, you also have the Plaza Premium level of lounges. Now this is a benefit that you get with the AMEX Platinum and with the Venture X, but not with the Chase Sapphire Reserve, so that's just something to note. But basically, this is another access level that you get to more lounges that you can then plug into Lounge Buddy. That's an app I like to use. When I'm flying somewhere, you can plug into Lounge Buddy like which credit cards that you have, and then it'll tell you which lounges you have access to and like how to get to them and what gate it's near. So that's just a quick recommendation about that. Okay, so the next benefit I want to touch on, I feel like not a lot of people that have the Venture X are actually aware that they have this benefit to use, and that would be the Premier Collection, as well as the Lifestyle Collection of hotels that you can book through the Capital One Travel Portal. This is somewhat of a new addition in terms of a benefit that you get with the Capital One Venture X. But what this does is that you get a $100 experience credit anytime you book a Premier Collection hotel with your Capital One Venture X through Capital One Travel, as well as daily breakfast for two anytime you stay at one of these hotels. Again, these are sort of nicer hotels that are offered on the Capital One Travel website. So think like a Ritz-Carlton type adjacent hotel or resort. And then you also have the Lifestyle Collection, which offers, once again, of course, 10x miles on every booking for that, but also a $50 experience credit when you stay at one of those Lifestyle Collection hotels. So think of Lifestyle Collection hotels being just kind of a tier lower than the Premier Collection level hotels. But anytime you stay at one of these hotels, you do get those experience credits, which is nice because if you have any sort of on-site amenities like a bar or a restaurant, or if you want to pay for a massage, or if you have like a pool access thing you need to pay for, then you get that included as part of the credit that you get for booking this stay with your Venture X. So the next benefit we're going to touch on is the Capital One dining benefit that you get with having the Capital One Venture X card. Now, this is, again, a newer benefit that's been added by Capital One. Now, Capital One dining, in my experience, is actually pretty cool because, one, it's fairly easy to use. If you've used the Capital One travel platform in terms of booking flights and hotels, you already know that it's fairly easy to look at pricing and actually book stuff. And the same goes for Capital One dining. Just think about it as like a travel platform, except for restaurants. And so instead of going to Google Maps or Yelp and looking up the best restaurants, you can go on Capital One Dining and do the same thing, except that the benefit here is actually that you have certain tables that are reserved for Venture X cardholders, which might be like hard to believe because it's not like the Venture X is regarded as some sort of premier status kind of situation, but believe it or not, that is a thing. And what's even better is that there's this thing called insider tables that you can see marked with like a little glittery sign, a glittery button next to the time of the reservation that's available. And what this means is that the restaurant actually has certain perks or kind of like free little things that they give you for booking that table and knowing that you're like sort of on like a VIP kind of list, and you get a table reserved at one of these restaurants. Now, I'm gonna be honest and say that if you're not in one of the cities that are offered with Capital One dining right now, like Honolulu, Hawaii, where I'm at right now, they're not going to have a table or a reservation for any of the restaurants because they don't have that service in that city yet. Okay, but if you are, then they include some pretty solid restaurants, like literally like Michelin star level restaurants that are available on Capital One dining. So if you're a card holder and you didn't know about that benefit, I would definitely try it out for yourself and see if there's any cool perks or benefits or kind of VIP service that you get for utilizing Capital One dining. But again, that's definitely a useful benefit that you can actually get some value out of and help offset the annual fee as well. So the next benefit is Capital One Entertainment, which is sort of the same idea, except it's more like tickets for things. And I have to say that personally, I haven't used this benefit myself because I honestly don't really go to a ton of sporting events. I can just stream it on my phone or on the computer or on the television or whatever the case might be. But the Capital One Entertainment option is also pretty solid because once again, it is like early access to certain events and it gives you that VIP status similar to the kind of insider tables with Capital One dining that you can expect at certain locations. And once again, it is sort of location based, and Capital One obviously operates out of the East Coast and more major cities. So for example, like the Capital One lounges are in Dulles in the DC area, are in Denver and in Dallas. And so of course, among the major cities, those are the ones you can expect to have these sort of entertainment kind of benefits that you can look at. But that's also something to consider as a benefit that you might be able to use, especially if you're a big Caps fan or if you go to sporting events and you want to get tickets and that kind of thing. It can definitely be valuable instead of having to go to Ticketmaster or buying resale tickets, which is just don't do that. Okay, like people do that, don't be silly. The next benefit is the global entry / TSA Pre-check benefit. Across all of the major credit cards that cost more than $100 a year to have, even the ones that are $95, like the Capital One Venture and the Chase Sapphire Preferred, they generally have global entry and TSA Pre-check. Now, of course, these are benefits that you don't have to use, or not you don't have to use. You can only really use them once every 4 years, in terms of TSA Pre-check at least, in that you get that benefit applied for that entire period that your background is checked for, right? So if you're not aware of already, if you're in the military, you don't need TSA Pre-check because your military ID on the back of it has a number, your DOD ID, that's your pre-check number. But for all you normal folks out there, the TSA Pre-check benefit is pretty solid and of course is something you should expect out of a card that you have to pay this much for. But if you're using this benefit, it's $100 you don't have to spend, and again, makes this card something that pays for itself. The next one here is Hertz Presidential Circle Status, which is a rental car company. Hertz is the one that I believe bought all those Teslas and then decided they didn't want to have all those Teslas in their fleet in terms of the rental cars. But President Circle is the highest level of Hertz rental car status, which basically means that instead of going to Hertz's website and booking a rental car and having economy class cars or like the basic mid-tier or small sedan kind of situation, you basically have access to all of the cars that Hertz has to offer, and you can basically choose from them. Now, personally, I have to say that I don't use Hertz because I have a pretty good corporate discount code with Avis. And so if you're one of the homies, you know that because you're probably using my discount code. I should not have said that on the internet. Nonetheless, okay, it's time to get serious. The President's Circle status is solid because if you don't have a corporate code type of thing with any of the rental car companies, when you do travel somewhere, it's nice to have that as an option. Also, because later on in this list, as we're going to talk about, you get the primary insurance coverage, not secondary, primary insurance coverage with your rental car, right? So that means you get collision insurance for free anytime you book a rental car, even if it's not on Hertz. So if you're booking, an Avis car or a Enterprise rent-a-car, like the primary insurance coverage is solid because what this means is when you go to the website and you book your car, it's going to give you options for insurance. That means you don't have to buy that insurance through the rental car company because it's actually covered through Capital One's insurance company. It's not Capital One, they have a subsidiary for that. Same with AMEX and Chase. But just keep in mind the Venture X offers primary coverage. Now, to be clear, if you use the insurance for anything that I'm going to talk about on this video that have, the coverage from the Venture X or any credit card, the claims process can be pretty lengthy. And so, if you haven't submitted a claim for stuff in the past, like if you got your luggage jacked at the airport by somebody at the baggage claim, for example, even if you have to do that with an airline, it's also a pretty difficult process. So the moral of that story is to not get in an accident when you're in a rental car. The next benefit on here is the Cultivist membership. Frankly, I don't go to museums a ton because I'm always working, or I'm working hard on this YouTube channel for you guys. But you do get access to this membership for 6 months from when you activate it after getting the Venture X. Now the Cultivist membership is pretty solid, okay? So what you're getting with this is free museum access for the card holder of the Cultivist membership, of course, as well as one guest. So if you and your significant other want to go to a museum on a cute little date, you can do that for free if you have the Capital One Venture X. How cool is that, So if you were looking to go to a museum, you can see if that's included in the list of museums or art collections. It could be anything. You just have to see what's available. The Cultivist has a website that's also linked to Capital One. So if you're a Venture X card holder, you get access to that. And you can see different exhibitions, again, art shows, museums, stuff like that you get free entry to or access to with your Venture X for having that membership. Now, the next benefit you get on here with the Capital One Venture X is the Prior membership, which is Capital One's partnership with this travel guide kind of company. And so this is actually something that's probably pretty useful if you don't watch YouTube. And if you're watching this video, obviously you watch YouTube. And so you can probably get your travel guide and ways to do stuff from other people on the internet. But I'm gonna stop being silly. You can utilize this membership to then get a year's worth of access to Prior, just for having the Capital One Venture X. It's a year's worth of membership from when you open the card. So for example, for me, it was November 15th, I think last year. And so what that means is that a year from the time that I upgraded from the Venture to the Venture X, I have access to this membership. Now the Prior membership is pretty useful, especially because they've catered all the benefits in this card to people that actually travel, okay? So if you're going on a vacation, if you're going on your honeymoon, if you're doing all these fun things, going to a place you haven't been before, a travel guide is actually a great thing to have. Now, of course, with having the Venture X, for it being a premium travel rewards credit card, there are no foreign transaction fees. This is something that it is customary across credit cards of this tier, once again, but no foreign transaction fees is important for somebody that travels like yourself, if you're thinking about getting the Capital One Venture X, because if you're traveling overseas and you use your Visa card, your Capital One Venture X, there are no extra fees that you normally have to pay with a credit card issuer for using your card outside of the United States. The next one on here is cell phone protection, which is something that's generally offered by these major credit card issuers like Chase or AMEX, especially because they have those assurance companies that are subsidiaries of the credit card issuer. How this works is that when you pay your monthly wireless bill with the Capital One Venture X card, your phone is protected for the next calendar month, okay? And so you'll get reimbursed if your cell phone, your iPhone or whatever smartphone is stolen or damaged, which is up to $800 per specific claim. Okay, problem is that if you're getting an iPhone 26, or again, whatever the new generation is, the iPhone whatever X is probably going to be more than $800. So just keep that in mind, okay? So January to December, you can only break your phone twice and it's covered, okay? Up to $800 per claim. Now the next benefit has to do with Capital One Travel, and that is the price drop protection that you get with Capital One bookings, okay? So what this means is that if you book a flight on Capital One Travel, if you book it within the recommended period, so you'll see like a color-coded thing, right? So if it's green and it says that it's a good idea to book right now, for the next 10 days, you get automatic price drop coverage. And so what that means is that you get price drop coverage up to $50 in that difference between what you paid and what the new price of that same flight on the same date is actually worth. Now the next benefit is pretty important because I feel like if you have this card and use Capital One Travel, you should definitely utilize this, and that is the price match guarantee that you have on Capital One Travel. What this means is that if you find a better price on, let's say, Expedia or just Google Flights for the same flight within 24 hours of the time that you book, I mean, it should be pretty much instantaneous kind of price matching. Basically, if you look on Google Flights and the same price that you're seeing on Capital One and the same service, then if that flight is available on Google Flights for less, you just call Capital One Travel, they'll match the price, and that's what you're gonna pay booking it through Capital One Travel. This can be big, especially if you're trying to use your travel credit and kind of maximize that. You can be rest assured you're getting the best price available that's available anywhere if you price match with Capital One. Now the next one is tied into Capital One Travel again, and that's the price prediction and alerts for price drops and things like that with flights, especially, or bookings with hotels or rental cars, anything through Capital One Travel. And what that means is similar to Google Flights and their option to set an alert that they'll email you when the price has dropped for a specific flight service that you're looking for. Same thing with Capital One Travel that's offered just through Capital One Travel's actual website, and that's booking through Capital One Travel with your Venture X. The last benefit we're going to touch on is the 6-month Vinous subscription that you get. This is if you're a wine person, because vino is wine, I think in Italian. You get this subscription to a wine magazine that is offered electronically. The benefit is not so much the fact that you can read about wine online. What's the point? You're not a wine person because you like to read about it, it's because you like to drink it, okay? You get access, I think, to exclusive events through having the subscription that you can read about, that they're not gonna just post online. And so that's sort of the benefit there if you decide that you want to indulge in some wine during your year. So there you have it. That is the comprehensive list of all of the Capital One Venture X benefits that you have access to right now as of the making of this video. Once again, I would say there are benefits that they are probably going to continue to add in the future, and things like the Capital One Lounge access or Capital One Dining, or they're going to add it to new cities, and that further increases the value of that, especially if you're currently not in a city that they have service for that benefit right now. Also, I think if you've watched this far into the video and you've gotten some value out of this, normally I would say, like the video and, subscribe to my channel for similar content. But also if you are looking to get the Venture X, my referral link is down below. I don't believe it's tied to a higher chance of approval. You have to have, a certain range of a credit score. And to that note, I would say that you need at least a 740 or higher. That's not a hard and fast rule. Again, credit bureaus can be tricky and Credit Karma is not always accurate. But that's generally the credit score you need to get the Venture X. But again, my referral link is down below if you'd like to use it. Now, the last thing I want to touch on in this video is a quick valuation of Capital One miles in terms of utilizing them, not just on the Capital One travel platform, but also for other things like paying for expenses, as well as transferring them to other partners, just briefly, and showing you guys the type of value you can get for utilizing those Capital miles outside of Capital One Travel. So previously, about a year ago, I've made a pretty comprehensive video about the best ways to utilize your Capital One miles for maximum value in terms of transferring them or utilizing them for all these options that they have listed here on their website. So I'm not going to go into depth into that. But what I want to say is that in terms of the valuation of Capital One miles, they are at an absolute minimum a 1 cent per point value for doing absolutely no work outside of just using them on Capital One Travel to book flights, hotels, or rental cars. Once again, I value simplicity, and so having a good travel platform like Capital One Travel, this is similar to Chase Travel, where I've said good things about that as well, and that you get extra added value for using the CSR on their website. The same is not true for Capital One Travel. You get it at a 1 cent per point value, but again, Capital One Travel price matches, and so you know that you're getting the best value possible for that specific flight service or hotel or rental car that you're looking to book on a particular date. Now, the real moneymaker here is the convert rewards option for your Capital One Venture X. What this means, if you're new to the channel, is that you can utilize your Capital One miles to transfer them to an alliance or a partner of Capital One Travel that then allows you to book a flight on a different airline or with the same airline for better value than you can find in a cash price ticket. Now, if you go to the transfer rewards page, once you have your Capital One Venture X, you can see there's a number of options to actually transfer these miles over to. And most of them are between instantaneous, which is the moment you click transfer those miles that they'll transfer over, to a few days in terms of when they arrive, to then be able to use those miles that you transferred over from Capital One to book a flight elsewhere. The example I'm going to talk about right now is the one that I use the most and has actually changed recently because Turkish Miles and Smiles, which if you guys have been watching the channel, I love that, has actually devalued their rewards program a little bit. And still nonetheless, it is still the best value you can get transferring your points or miles from any credit card platform, okay? Now, something I will say is that for this particular example, like Turkish Miles and Smiles, you can book a one-way domestic ticket anywhere in the United States as of the making of this video, for 10,000 miles. What this means is that it's valued at 10,000 Turkish miles and smiles, which is the same value that you're going to transfer over from Capital One to get that price on Turkish miles and smiles. I've made other videos detailing how to do that and how to transfer your points and actually how to book a rewards ticket through Starline's partner on Turkish miles and smiles. The pricing is now different, but the process is still the same. But in case you don't want to click off this video, the basic rundown is you click transfer from Capital One over to Turkish miles and smiles. Let's say it's 10,000 miles. You refresh the page on Turkish miles and smiles, and the rewards miles are available instantaneously, which is great, which can then be used to book a one-way ticket anywhere domestically in the United States. Again, as I mentioned, for this use case or for any transfer partner use case, you want to make sure that the price that you're getting is better than the cash price you'd have to pay if you book that same flight on a credit card, whether it's a Capital One Venture X or anything else, just on Google or through the airline directly. Now with the Turkish miles and smiles example, the 10,000 miles it costs to fly anywhere domestically one way, or the 15,000 miles it costs to fly anywhere in business class domestically is pretty insane value, okay? So at a 1 cent per point valuation, this is two, at a 1 cent per point valuation, that means that it's $100 to fly anywhere domestically, okay? That's hard to beat. And the benefit here is that the Capital One Venture X is one of the few cards that actually has a transfer partner or has Turkish miles and smiles as a transfer partner, okay? That means if you decide to go with the Chase Sapphire Reserve or the AMEX Platinum, this loyalty partner is not going to exist because they don't partner with AMEX or Chase as of the making of this video. So once again, that's one of many different options you have to transfer your points or miles, at least domestically. Hawaii is obviously part of the United States, although it's much further from any other destination. It's like 5 hours from LA, and LA is another 5 hours from the East Coast. And normally a flight from Hawaii, especially Honolulu to somewhere on the East Coast, is going to cost you upwards of $300, $400 for just a one-way economy ticket. And getting that at 10,000 miles, which makes it $100, is much better. So just to recap briefly, in terms of the annual fee, the Venture X is the lowest annual fee of those premium travel rewards credit cards and offers simply the best bang for your buck in terms of getting a return on that annual fee, not just in the first year because of the sign-up bonus, but because of the benefits they offer that are actually usable and that you're probably likely to use as a customer of Capital One. The added benefit of the transfer partners of Capital One, including Turkish Miles and Smiles, makes the Venture X, to me, a no-brainer to get, especially if you fly domestically in the United States. And again, we've only talked about this one use case in terms of a transfer partners video, but there are many other ways to utilize those Capital One miles to transfer them to Singapore KrisFlyer miles, over to British Airways or Cathay Pacific, Asia miles, and to book other flights to go somewhere internationally. And those are also great options that really, again, add to the value of having this card. But just at face value, if you're a beginner to the credit card space, I would say that my recommendation to anybody would be that the Venture X is the best card to get if you are first beginning your credit card journey in terms of the first, premium travel rewards credit card to get. And if I were to just have one card in my, not portfolio, I'm gonna stop saying that. If I were to just have one credit card in my wallet right now and nothing else, confidently, I would say it'd be the Capital One Venture X as of the making of this video, okay? Things can always change. But my expectation is that Capital One is going to continue to make their offerings even better. There are definitely benefits that are going to continue to improve for Capital One, and I don't see it going south anytime in the near future. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like down below. Comment if you have any questions. I know this is kind of a long one, so if you've stuck around this long, or if you've skipped to this part, thank you guys for watching nonetheless, and I'll see you guys in the next one.